An inner journey encompasses the multi-layered experience of our human life. We can reach the undiscovered corners of our psyche in a way that remains unmatched by other therapeutic modalities. Perhaps it is a shortcut, but if we are suffering so much that it is preventing us from having a healthy, happy life, what is wrong with a quicker and more efficient way to heal? Expanded states of consciousness tend to open people up to a level of deeply visceral and direct experience that is difficult, if not impossible, to reach through regular therapy. It is my experience that the healing accessed in expanded states goes swiftly to the core of the issue needing attention, making it an extremely effective modality. It is especially useful for addressing preverbal trauma, which talk therapy can barely access. However, it also means that this therapeutic approach calls for an extra level of caution and attention with aftercare and integration. The content of our experience in expanded states is almost always pointing us toward more balance. Post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. Many techniques and approaches attempt to address these life-crippling PTSD symptoms, sometimes successfully and sometimes not. In the last 25 years, research has demonstrated that MDMA can be useful in the treatment of PTSD, and the prospect of a legal status for the administration of this medicine outside of a research context and under proper supervision is more than ever a real possibility. Some of it is repressed energy that simply needs to be released and flushed out of our nervous system. When we are in a place of stagnant tension with little movement, there is almost always agitation in the center. One of the most common concerns I hear from a new client is, I feel stuck. It is this absence of fluid movement that they are feeling. Natural law is one of constant change. Nothing stays static in the natural world. Continual movement and cycles of change lie at the heart of all life. Experiencing the movement of energy in our body restores our health, melting away blockages that have reduced our vitality, and dramatically catalyzing the healing process.
My name is Bessel Van Der Kolk. I am a physician, I'm a psychiatrist. I have been studying trauma for about 50 years now. The nature of trauma is that something happens to you, your survival brain makes the first interpretation and says, is this dangerous or is this safe? So it's very important to really be aware that these reactions emanate from your body. And so the big challenge of treating trauma is how do we help people to live in bodies that feel fundamentally safe?
Trauma became an area of specialty for you. But before we go there, you answered this question in terms of describing your background. Your very first sentence was really interesting to me. I was born with a certain type of nervous system. And I think most of us don't really think that way. We don't think about the nervous system that we were born with. We might think of, certain ways that we manifested behavior as a young child, but not about the nervous system we're born with. Tell me how you've come to look through that particular lens, and what do you think? Did you inherit the nervous system of your mother? Is that what was going on? Like, how do you understand this?
So yes, I do believe I inherited primarily the nervous system from my mother. But I think that most of us sort of swim around in this idea that we're a unitary consciousness and identity, right? So we're the same no matter what we're doing. And as long as we're in that place, actually, that kind of way of seeing us as responsible for every state we get into, there's a lot of suffering in there, because like, if I was angry, I'd hate that angry self. And if I was sad or cranky or difficult, I would hate that self afterwards. Through my work, both with training the mind and working with dissociation, I sort of came to see that we're really a lot of times operating in these states, in these defensive states. And so we're born with a tendency to be in one area or the other. Some of us are blessed, kind of balanced and in the middle and kind of settled, but some of us are blessed with a more either angry or afraid nervous system, an activated nervous system, or we might have a nervous system that tends to be kind of sleepy, tired, sluggish, low energy. I don't think that these are destiny. So for years, when I thought that it was all my fault that I was anxious, I hated me for that. I didn't think I was born with a bad nervous system. I just thought I was born a bad human. And that's where I think a lot of pain occurs for people, when they start hating themselves for having the stuff that's wired in hard for all of us.
I was raised in the mainstream culture where if you feel bad, you take something to make that feeling go away. Around that time that I first started to work for the VA, I looked at the treatments that we have. I did the first study on Prozac for PTSD, the first study for Zoloft for PTSD, and a number of other conventional drugs. What we found is that it didn't work very well. Our conventional way of thinking about it is not working. I thought, okay, if it doesn't work, let's see what else can work.
Somatic experiencing. Now, what is SE? Okay, it's here, the dry words. It's a short-term. This is how it was originally designed, was a short-term, naturalistic, we'll explain some of these things, therapeutic approach to resolve and renegotiate the effects of trauma. But let's come down to SE is designed, this is one of the things that I love about SE. Yes, it's designed to resolve traumatic stress and to increase the capacity to negotiate stress and trauma. You know, we don't get to just close the story on our experience. That would be an unfortunate thing actually to happen, because we're nurtured and informed and evolve through our experiences. It's only when they become overwhelming that we need to be able to renegotiate them in order that they are unmanageable, that we can continue with our lives. So this increasing the capacity to negotiate stress and trauma is actually saying that what SE is doing is it's increasing our resilience to deal with what goes on out there. Now, many people with trauma remove themselves. They create lives that are quite small in order that they won't have to deal with more stuff. SE, like many, is a synthetic approach. We've taken unashamedly, and hopefully we admit it, from many, many different branches. I know we have wonderful Deb Dana talking after, Steve Porges's polyvagal theory, which I have a big smile because that has informed me so hugely in my work with SE. So the polyvagal theory and the other aspects that you can see written in front. But for me, the ethological and the ethology and the physiology of stress is what we're going to be leaning into here. Ethology, what is ethology? It's the study of human behavior through its biology, right? Through its biology. And then the physiology of stress that we've known about for a long time, but somehow the whole subject and the understanding of trauma hasn't really caught hold until comparatively recently, considering how ancient. We've always had trauma in our societies, and we've always had ways of dealing with it. When I do my 2-day introduction, I actually talk about that, because I think the history of trauma and why we're now all going, oh heavens, this trauma underlying our personal, our professional, our political, yes, and our planetary conditions. So breaking down the 3 key principles or key concepts of SE. The first one, which dates back to probably pre-Hippocrates. Hippocrates was, 495 BC, but said it very clearly, is that we get ill when we lose the capacity to self-regulate. And trauma, that's what trauma does. It destroys our ability to be able to move from pendulate from an extreme condition into a calming effect and then coming back to regulation. And we're doing it all the time, night and day, whether we're aware of it or not. But when we have symptoms that show up, almost invariably, it's a sign that this capacity to self-regulate or to heal has been capsized. Okay, so if I were working with you with your trauma, I don't get to fix you. No, I support you to be able to do what your body knows how to do, is to come back to its regulation, to its healing. Yeah, this is what we're doing with SE. The second concept is that trauma is in the body, not in the event. Yeah, well, no, isn't trauma in the event? What happened to me in 1999? Yeah, it happened to me in 1999. That incident is past. Then how come I'm still feeling it now? It's because it's in the body, not in the event. So in SE, we're focusing on the physical body. Verbal is important, though. In SE, we don't focus on telling the story. The story, of course, is important. All your experiences are important. But many of us who've had difficulties have told the story over and over again, and yet we still feel rubbish. So we're looking at the body. The body is holding the trauma. And so we're working to allow the body to speak for itself in that unspoken voice, sometimes in movement, sometimes in changes of color, sometimes in shifts of the autonomic nervous system. Yeah. And then the third key concept, the symptoms of trauma are the result of undischarged survival energy in the nervous system. Wow, when I realized that, it made me understand a lot of I was working in therapeutic practice. I was trained as a ROFA, as a structural integrator, working with the fascial network. I didn't understand this about trauma. Okay, I'm going to step out now. I think we should learn this stuff in primary school, honestly. We should be learning to understand the capacity to self-regulate, and that this survival energy needs to be discharged. If somebody had managed to intervene with me in the first week or couple of weeks after I had been rear-ended by that car and had allowed the shock to come out of my system, well, I actually wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here, because here was something when trauma turns to transformation. Because how it happened is that event was something that transformed my life.
And then I got to see some of the results. I go like, wow, this is interesting. Wiggling your fingers in front of people's eyes as they think about the trauma made the trauma go away. This crazy eye movement desensitization actually changes the circuitry of the brain to interpret your current reality from a different angle. This had amazing effects on people being able to let go of what happened and say, yes, that's what happened to me, and it happened a long time ago. It's not happening right now. That was the first time that I saw a non-conventional technique have a very profound effect. About this idea, we are thinking about psychedelics. What do you think about psychedelics for trauma? And I go like, wow. You're speaking from my heart. Because, of course, I'm a child of the 60s. And we dabbled in LSD and psychedelic substances. Wouldn't it be great if we could do psychedelic substances to see if these substances can open up people's minds to see that the reality that they live in is just a small part of the reality that there is. But I said, don't do it. It will destroy your career. These drugs are illegal. And they said, thank you very much for your opinion. We'll try it anyway. They got permission to do a study of MDMA, also known as ecstasy or Molly, for trauma. And it worked out pretty well. And they were able to collect a large amount of money to do a very large and extremely expensive study. Lots of different sites around the US, one in Israel, one in Canada. So let me tell you how the study is set up. After all the preparation, you have a whole day of taking ecstasy while you lie on the bed, 2 therapists in your room for 8 hours. What we see in the people who get the drug is amazing. People are able to go to places they have never felt safe to go to. This is not a picnic. They see the horrible things that happen to them. But MDMA allows people to see themselves with compassion. All these measures we have about self-perception and self-awareness just shoot up. And rather than blaming themselves, they're able to say, yes, this will happen to me, but it's over. Part of what has kept me so busy all these years is how can we find a treatment that allows that basic sense of defectiveness and self-loathing to be controlled. And now it looks like we have found something that causes a very substantial drop in PTSD. Probably more than just about anything else we have studied.
Since this option turned out to be quite complicated in regards to financing and finding the right therapist who is actually really into nervous system work and knows about trauma, this is so hard to find somebody. Then you have all of this shit going on in your life, not necessarily family, but all the other stuff. Well, so you have to find other solutions. A very good friend who pointed this possibility out to me got me into doing my own research on this topic, and I got really hooked and wanted to try it myself because the potential of that was very promising. So I ordered some of these and did my own tea, simmering it about 30 minutes, and I got a lot out of it. So I need to do an update. PTSD issues, I think everything was related to trauma and PTSD. And I had anger issues. If you're familiar with the window of tolerance, you can be stuck on a fight-flight response, and then you cannot calm down, and then you're in this constant rage. And the result of that was migraines and even fibromyalgia-like pain, just from getting so stressed and angry and not being able to calm down. Yeah, So just recently a friend sent a video to me from Amanita Dreamer, and I watched it and I decided, okay, I will try this, because everything else I tried has failed. So I ordered this online, and then I made the tea, microdosing, and accidentally, it was about the 4th time or so, I took a hero dose. Yeah, but from that moment on, I will tell you, things really shifted. And a lot got repaired.